tear our very flesh.
with no thought of compassion. Do you think we will sit idly by?
While you corrupt the very womb of our existence.
What? Corrupting their womb? Yeah, says the huge parasitic tumor grown around two spaceships. They do bring insults to a whole different level, though. Anyways. Hello and welcome to episode 38 of Pacifist's Approach. This is your host ShephardReborn, and let us proceed with our journey through the bowels of the many.
Communication hazard.
Yeah, this whole bit got me quite frustrated when I played it for the first time. Well, because I didn't bring the hazmat suit along, which is a common mistake amongst first-time players of System Shock 2. But as I recall, this is really the last instance when you deal with radiation poisoning anyway, so no matter. Although, if you're out of both hazmat suit and the anti-radiation drugs, well, then it's a real bummer for you. Slash, then run. I could fight them all to save time, but since this is one of the last occasions for a classic pacifist approach dodging and acrobatics, let's do this sort of old school. Everybody knows there's a face visible on Rambler's left shoulder, or actually on all creatures of that kind in the entire game. There's a face in a texture. Some consider that an Easter egg, a face of artist or something, maybe someone who made the texture. Might be a good explanation of that, but beside this being a so-called Easter egg, I think it's legitimate and intentional, as to emphasize that these creatures descend from hybrids, which, of course, were at some point human. That is stated in creature's organ description, if you care to read it after researching it. However, the tale that this face might belong to someone from the design team, well, this is still possible, since, for instance, Delacroix's face was based on Terry Brochu's face, the woman who was the voice talent for this character and the character of Sheldon. And by the way, I say Delacroix instead of Delacroix because I believe this is the proper pronunciation of her surname. I was told that once in a comments section, long time ago. I don't speak French, no, really, but I checked it in Google Translator and, well, it sounds better, more French. I think it's time to end her torments with Song of the Crystal Shard. This always reminds me of Daniel's commentaries. He made a joke about this looking like a little hobo home, which is really a brilliant comparison if you ask me. Deactivating these eggs, by which I mean triggering them to burst open, is quite tedious, so I decided to spare you that by fast forwarding this stuff. Funny, they got stuck up there. It's pretty weird that the waypoints lead those flies up to the ceiling here. It seems to be some unresolved bug. I went through this place a couple of times before during test runs, and I've seen that happening at least twice or so. Oh, here we see another bit of Von Braun being infested by the many. Well, I love such places, really. tranquil scenes of desolation and decay. You really start to appreciate diversity of sound that System Shock throws at you. Just hear the dripping water slightly echoed from the metal walls, floor and ceiling. Faint and distant howling of air. Such a refreshing change from the hypnotic humming of organic corridor that we've passed a minute ago. I remember seeing some photos online of Looking Glass office where they recorded audio for Thief the Dark Project game, particularly voice recordings. System Shock shares a fair bit of sound design with its older brother, so I'd expect that the way the sound effects were created wasn't really different from the Looking Glass practice. After all, it was Eric Brosius, whatever his name is pronounced, who worked on both projects. Anyway, my point is, the set looked quite improvised. It was pretty much a microphone and a pop filter in an ordinary office box. No professional room, no foams, no expensive equipment. The people who make podcasts today have better equipment than the gear I've seen on those pictures. The point is, the way the sound effects in both those games were processed, arranged, produced, mastered, whatever, is just pure genius, considering that this was done probably at the lowest cost. I think it's good to take a minute or two, or probably more than two, to discuss a broad topic, which is the levels of symbolism in struggle between the many and Shodan. I believe that making the many a collective organism, a hive mind, is a deliberate choice of Ken Levine. Shodan represents the demon of individuality set to extreme, the megalomania. It is only natural that the counterweight should be equal, but with vector shifted exactly in opposite direction. When you think about it, it is easy to recognize that the struggle between the individuality and the collective is meant to be conveyed on many different levels, apart from the most apparent. You got the animalistic level, or perspective. It's strategy for survival. All species have to choose between a solitary lifestyle, like most of the predators, pack culture, like dogs, wolves and large cats, perhaps, and finally, a total collective. A colony, like insects and much of the sea life. The conflict between the many and Shodan is a duel of those survival strategies. There's also the theme of self-identification. Should you submit to an idea, movement, group of people, join and work as a part of something greater, or should you create something yourself and rise above others? To be leading the way or to be the one who follows? In System Shock, it is turned to the extreme in the most primal way. Total selflessness and total individuality. Finally, there's the political undertone too. In one of the first episodes, I stated that the many's philosophical views are much like communism. There's too little time to explain in detail what's that all about, but saying in a nutshell, communism is where there are no distinct differences in mindset, economical and social status, even in lifestyle throughout the population. You cannot distinguish the poor, the middle and the upper class, because there is only one class, the working class. This is of course bullshit, and in theory and in practice proven on many occasions in history. Communism doesn't work because people are not equal, not in their preferences, aspirations, dreams and abilities. Therefore, such an ideal society will be either trimming down the most talented, the promising, or expecting too much from people who just want to live comfortably. So to simplify, in the end you're left with no one who is particularly content. But getting back to System Shock, clearly the demon of such foolish ideas should be counteracted with exact opposite. A malevolent idea concentrated around the individual as opposed to the collective. But it's not fascism as many would expect. It's more clever. Shodan's rampant individualism and godlike manners represent the absolute monarchy, well, with some theocratical flavor. Of course, Shodan doesn't need subjects. Her Majesty manufactures them. Firstly mutants or on Citadel Station, and then the many. System Shock 2 doesn't really point out which of these two ideologies is the lesser evil. This is ensured by a simple absence of choice. The notion of being refused the choice to either join Shodan or the many holds everything together and stands as one of the most important messages that this game conveys. The fact that the protagonist doesn't have any other option but to follow Shodan's orders relieves the player from taking sides in the conflict. Taking sides would be engaging, yes, but also morally questionable, since it would inadvertently make the player relate to one of the fighting powers, either the chauvinistic individualism of Shodan or the unitarism of the many. In my opinion, the more choice game has, the better, of course, but somehow I must admit that this is something that makes the entire series. It's a recurring theme that originates from the first game with the deal that the hacker makes with Diego Senior, continues throughout the System Shock 2 in form of a pact between player and Shodan, and then reappears once again in Bioshock with the famous "Would you kindly?" This is because a willing, true alliance with either of opposing powers would undermine the protagonist's reputation as a true hero, perhaps making it difficult for the gamer to relate to him. Okay, it's enough of boring you with all this fancy talk. Let's move out. In a moment. Just for the record, there are more indirect political influences in the storyline too. System Shock starts in dystopian society enslaved by demonized corporation, the Triopton. This corporation took over the world, and a rebellious hero, cyberpunkish youth, initiated its downfall, only to witness a military coup that resulted in setting a regime, which is the UNN. System Shock is, of course, a deeply cyberpunk game, and you do get the two things that punks hate the most: corporate white collars and the police.
You seek your associates, but you cannot find them.
You are so very alone. How does it feel to be one against the infinite?
Oh, I'm coming. I'm coming to share my insight with you. All of you.
I'll rip you up.
I guess this time it went the other way around. Yeah, bringing more one-liners to this series definitely increases the quality of my commentary. Okay, those things are quite loud. I hope you'll be able to hear me. This seems to be the place where Prefontaine kicked the calendar, or kicked the bucket, for all my English-speaking viewers. And here goes another batch of unworthy enemies that the many throw at me. Midwife and a spider. Well, at least they sometimes give you good sport. Another hobo home, I suppose. It's been a while. Let's play some audio log.
5 minutes ago, one of those large burly creatures dragged blood across the side of the grinding. Apparently, the enemy uses smaller creatures to help move food along its digestive tract. I tried to help Claudette, but it wasn't even a contest. And I'm ashamed to admit, I judged that seeing what happened to her was a vital element of my studies here. I imagine I won't have the opportunity to record any observations when it comes my turn.
Vital observations. Gold line, really. Don't you love Prefontaine? Scientist to the last. When I saw this place for the first time, I was like, no way, I thought they were serious, but this? Teeth? Give me a break. Apart from that, another immediate thought was that I've seen this before, in a different setting but yet similar in concept, in Half-Life. But more on that in the next episode, since we're running out of time here. Thanks for watching this, see you next time. ShephardReborn out.